Welcome to McGowan's Canvas Miracles. Well, today we're going to have a miracle. We're going to paint a painting, tell some stories, change some lives, maybe even my own life, my own mind, my own thoughts. You know, come on, get a little closer, sit right up. You never know, you might just get a smile on your face today. I wrote this poem a couple of weeks ago. I was sitting at the edge of the water actually, looking at sunrise as I often do. And it's called I'm Still Here, and That's Enough. When I lose my way, when the day arrives unfinished and does not keep its promise, which happens to us a lot. I hear an old voice for a moment, the way one holds a coat at the door and says goodbye, not forever, only for a time. My heart remains soaked in its labor, my eyes do their best not to grow wet, and I steady myself, refusing to slide into memories. You know, the memories which I have that have felled me deeply. Then, without argument, without demand, the day calls me, as it always has. I look up, and I let the question pass without even asking, because I'm still here, and that's enough. You know, every day we wake up, and we worry about the future, all the things we're going to do, and, you know, how I'm going to pay the mortgage, what I'm going to do for the kids, and before you know it, year after year sort of slips by, and we wonder, what was it all for? What did I do? You know, I never really got there. And you never really do get to this certain place. What you have to do is get up and ask yourself, am I on the journey that fulfills my life, that makes me feel good? It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're collecting garbage, whether you're a doctor doing surgery, you all have the same emotional feelings inside. You know, is what I'm doing enough? Is it what life's about? And you have to find out those questions for yourself. And it's good to read, to do poetry, to look in books, to watch, you know, documentaries on people who have done great things or people who have done not so great things, people who have failed. You know, even understanding failure is one of the great arts in the world. And when we paint a picture, it's the same thing. We all start out with art thinking, oh, I want it to look like that. But that's not the purpose of art. The purpose of art is to tell a story from within yourself, to learn how you can overcome something, an obstacle. I can't do this sky, I can't do this wall, I can't do this brick. Why can't I do it? And pay attention. And when you learn to pay attention to the small details, eventually you do it over and over, you fail enough times, throw the ball enough times, miss the net. Once in a while it goes in. And you know what happens? You jump up and down for joy. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to jump up and down for joy and find a way to just get ourselves to that next level, to something interesting. Let's paint a circle. You know, circles are a hard thing to paint. Today we're going to work with some Chinese watercolors, something different. I usually work with acrylics. Watercolor is different because it spreads itself around the canvas and you got to sort of, it takes away your ability to cover up and do things. You just got to let it happen and sort of let the painting make itself. So I'm always talking about what we can create by just adding and applying paint. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to work on this picture and see how it works out for us. So I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see. Oh, you guys look beautiful. I never realized how pretty you all are. We're going to take this brush and we're going to make a circle. So any flat brush will do. Doesn't matter what you have. You know, you can get it at any store. It's just a standard straight flat brush. We're going to put it on the canvas and we're going to rub around in a circle. Simple as that. Just make our first sun. Easy. How's that? Beautiful. Already. Something more beautiful than it was before. It's got some color. We took that plain, simple thing, just by one stroke, we've added in some color. Let that dry a little bit. Let's see, what can we do to our sun? Sun's not purely just one color, is it? We'll add a little bit of yellow over the top, sort of make it a little bit brighter. Just let it flow down in. See how it sort of steadies itself. Just like life, we're just going to sort of attack it one piece at a time today and see what happens. So we got a little bit of yellow at the top. So we're going to say the sun is turning red at the bottom. And I'm just going to tap that color in, let it sort of flow in and create its own thing. I'm never trying to actually paint over everything or make everything perfect. throwing in some color and seeing what happens. Simple as that. I'm not going to touch it anymore. Going to get out of there. Easy. You know, beauty doesn't live in the painting. It lives in the moments. You see something, you think, wow, that's amazing. Where did that come from? It's not something you did, it's something that appears. And what you got to do is you got to learn to emphasize it and play with it until accidents happen all the time in your life. Get up every day. You don't know who you're going to meet, who you're going to come across. You accidentally meet the strangers. The other day I went into a coffee shop, and every day I go to coffee shops and I stop in, and there's usually some homeless people or some friends that I meet for different reasons, pastors that I talk to, homeless guys that are sitting there that say hi and ask them about their day and try to understand, you know, how their lives are going and how they're struggling. Well, this particular day, this fella, homeless guy I know who has nothing to his name. He basically lives with a bag and carries it everywhere he goes. I see him on the streets, and I've tried to help him over the years many times. Originally, he ran into my car with his bike, and that's how we got to meet each other. Got him a new bike, and he ended up selling that for whatever. He needed something else in life and went about his way. So it didn't really change his life getting him a bike, and I'd given him money more times and things. But this particular day, I came into the coffee shop, and he just seemed to be buzzing and smiling and had a glow about him, and I was like, what's going on? I couldn't quite understand it. But there was another homeless guy there with him, and he was getting him a coffee, and he was digging through his bag of row and stuff, and pulled out some old gloves for this guy, and he said, I got some gloves for you. But what was amazing me was the look on his face. This one homeless guy was helping the other homeless guy out. I had never seen him so happy, and all the times I'd come to the coffee shop and come along, I'd never seen anybody light up like that was so down and out. And it made me realize that we go about things in a way that I never expected. I think in life we're always trying to create charity. It's like I rode a bike across the Atlantic provinces trying to raise some funds for tiny homes for them to live in and things like that. Always trying to raise money as a charity, but I think charity is the wrong, of course people need things and we want to help, but what people need is to get their dignity back. We always want to hide them in a box and shove them off to some side road or some place, and and every community says, no, not here, not around my children, not around my house. But society's problems are all of our problems. We shouldn't be hiding anybody away. We should be putting them dead center, saying, here's a shelter, here's a place to change your clothes, here's a place to go look for work. Here, you want to have some coffee today? Come in and help. Just give them work. Start getting dignity, something back, a purpose. Put them in the soup kitchens, helping other people that are struggling. When people have purpose and their life changes, their dignity changes. It's something that changes their mindset, and that's just what it is. You can give somebody all the chances and everything in the world, but until you change their mindset and believe that they are something special and they belong just like you're never going to change anything. You're just going to give them a moment's peace. That's it. So helping is great, but we as a society need to work more towards how we're helping and how we're working with people. We got to sort of blend things together, like in this painting. So we put that sky on there. I'm going to take the sky and just sort of blend it over. Make it all part of the whole painting. It's not just going to be its own thing. It's all going to be connected. I'm going to blend it in. Blend it into the sky. Just like the sun bleeds into the sky and it spreads out, we need to do that with our family members and the people in society. And I say family members because I had a group on here one time, and they were talking about they helped the homeless people. And they talked about them like they were family. They said they changed their idea. They said everybody's family. We talk about people like they're strangers and they're something, but they're somebody's children that's lost their way and going through hard times and whatever it might be. So if it was your children, wouldn't you want somebody to help them? So we don't need to shove them away into some abandoned spot in some hidden place. They're going to pop up anywhere. I mean, now we see them. You go into the bank to get money at the bank machine, and there's somebody sleeping in the bank. Like in a society where we have millions of dollars and fancy houses and lots of money, all the money in the world, we have people sleeping in our streets, in our garbage cans, and in the bank. So to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Obviously, we could do better. As a society, we need to work on that. Solutions. Not gifts, but solutions. Give people back their dignity. So next time you're thinking about helping with charity, think about how you can get somebody involved in something, how they can participate in something you might be in a group you're in. Maybe it's a paint group, you know. Say, hey, have you ever tried painting? Can you come help me with my class? I really have a hard time setting up, getting things going. And, you know, you could take some lessons and help me out, and we could sort of trade off. Once they know you need something from them, it'll change the way they look and feel about their own lives, and it'll change the way you look and feel about things. So blend things together. That's what we're going to do here in this painting. Today we're going to work on a simple painting. I'm going to try and keep it as easy, just a couple of colors blending back and forth. What I'm doing is a wash. With watercolors, we like to wash the painting a lot. Putting a yellow sort of wash over the top. Take away the white. Usually I do this on water paper, but I didn't happen to bring any with me today, so I had a little canvas, and I'm just going to throw it onto there. Go back and forth, blending it in. Now, what have I done? I painted a brush circle, one stroke around, put a little yellow on the top, red on the bottom. Simple. Then I just took some white, yellow, mixed it together, watery, painted over the whole thing. I mean, doesn't that sound like something you could do? How easy is that? It's funny, once somebody shows you something and you realize how easy it is, no longer is that elusive, like I can't do it. What is it that you can't do in your life that you think is so elusive? Break it down to something simpler. You know, what do you want to do? You want to play guitar? The hardest part about playing guitar is getting your fingers hard. When you first start, it doesn't sound like everybody else. Well, of course not. Everything takes a little practice, a little adjustment, and your hands have to get. So, there's a cost to everything. Cost to learning to paint, cost to learning to play guitar, you know, and you have to be willing to accept that cost when you start something. Doesn't matter what it is you're starting, you have to be able to say to yourself, okay, there's a burden at first, there's something I have to go through to get to this place that's going to make me a little better, and I'm going to be able to do that thing. And if my goal is to play a nice song, then I have to learn to hurt my fingers and get them hard at the top. And once I realize that, the pain becomes, every day I wake up and go, oh, they're a little harder today, they hurt a little more. And then one day, oh, they don't hurt quite as much. Oh, they hardly hurt at all. But I got these giant calluses on my fingers. I didn't really want that, but that's okay. Now I can start playing. So you cross the burden. Everything is starts out with a burden, something, you know, and I find the same thing with all my paint classes. People come in, you know, and somebody beside them might have been painting for a year or two or done 3 or 4 paintings before them, and they're just starting out, and they say, oh, my painting sucks, it doesn't look as good as theirs. So their expectation is way too high. And how many times do we do that to ourselves? We, you know, in a relationship, we find somebody and we think, oh, this is going to be amazing and wonderful. And at first, you know, because people hide who they are and they sort of act out their part. But then you get to know them and you realize all the faults, right? Because we all have them. Not one of us gets away without having faults. We all got some kind of deep closet burdens and things we go through. But they start to show up. Because the more you hang around with somebody, the more you start to see, oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, so things change. And you can never go back once you open the closet door, once you see things. But if you don't set that expectation of like this person is perfect and this person is just what I, you know, always wanted and dreamed of, and you just enjoy what you have, whatever that might be, then you can enjoy life just like a painting. You say to yourself, what can I do today? I'm painting this. So say you had an instructor. Instead of saying, oh, this sucks, can you fix my picture, or blah, blah, blah. Say to yourself, I want to do this, you know. How do I make that color that you got there? I'm not quite sure. Could you show me that? And then let them show you, and then practice it until you make that exact same color. We're going to move on to the stairs a little bit here. So when we're doing stairs, we want to have a couple of different things going on. We want to be able to see light at the top and shadow. So the sun would be coming, so that means the face of the stairs would start to be dark. So if we start just darkening in with a little bit of water, I'm not going to overpaint it and put a whole bunch of stuff. Just going to throw a little bit of darkness in there, because we all have that little bit of darkness in our life. what is that old poem? Out of the night that covers me, black is the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. Out of the foul clinch of circumstance, I have not winced and cried aloud. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. So we're all the captain of our soul. We can do something amazing and incredible if we just put our mind to it. We all have it. As Mariana Williams would say, we're all meant to shine like children do. We're all children of God. Nobody's left out. We think everybody else has something special. Oh, they're amazing. They're incredible. Look what they do. They're so talented. No. I think they just work a little harder than you. They get up in the morning, they try hard, and they fail more. You know that? I think the people that succeed fail a lot more than the people that don't succeed. Because they're willing to try. They're willing to go out, make that step, go out onto the edge. You know, how many times have you gone out to the edge? Said, oh, I'm going to do this or do that, do something, step out of my comfort zone. It's hard to do. You know something works, so we stick to it. I was talking to my brother one time. I have one brother, he works in the union, another brother who at the time was struggling doing something else. And they were all fighting out on the street, doing their union things, looking for more money and fighting. And my other brother, who had not had a job and was struggling, said, well, they should fire them all. I'd do that job for $20. And I said, no, you wouldn't. You know, they were fighting for whatever wage they were, and he was saying he would do it for half that wage. And I said, no, you wouldn't, because if you would have went and did what they did to get that job. You would have gone to school, or you would have gone through the process of getting that. And it's available to anybody that wants to go through that process. But what you want is for somebody to give it to you. To say, oh, I would do it for this if you give it to me. So you don't want to do any of the work. You don't want to go through the hardship and the pain that it takes to get to that place. So don't complain about, people are struggling or fighting for whatever they want, whether they should get it or don't get it. They have the right to fight for anything, and the fact that they do is why they get something, because they fight for it. And that's what you have to work for. Never deny somebody the right to go after something and try to do better for themselves. And never expect to be given something. Nobody's coming to save you. There's no miracle worker that's waiting around the corner, and if you just sit there watching Netflix long enough, somebody's going to come get you. It ain't going to happen. You're there to save yourself. You have everything within inside you to go out and change the world. And it's a shame that you're not, because you have that ability. So many people, they get themselves in a place where they've done something wrong, drug addicts and people that they've stolen money, or they've broken the law in some way, or they've done something, and keep getting themselves down this rabbit hole, thinking they can cheat their way out or finesse their way out with a little shady this and that. And there is no easy way out. I'll tell you, 100%. There's no easy way out of anything. You want to get good at something, you have to work really hard. And while you're working at it, and you're struggling really hard to get there, life will throw disasters at you. Your car will break. You'll get sick with cancer. You'll get, your marriage will fall apart. Your house will burn, or maybe all of the above. It doesn't matter. But what's that old adage from the Rocky movie? Life's not about how hard you get hit. It's about how many times you get back up. You get knocked down over and over and over again. I love that old part of the movie. There's reasons why we watch those old Rocky movies a few times when we were younger, because they were telling us a condition. The movies weren't about, a boxer or a story. The one thing the story had, when Stallone wrote it, was that he understood that the struggle to overcome things is what every human heart goes through. We all go through that struggle, trying to find our way, our voice in the world. And when he was writing the movie, that's what he was writing about. An example of this would be Gladiator. I don't know if you've seen Gladiator 1, and it's like an epic movie, and the story, and he overcomes everything to get, it doesn't turn out that great for him, but the journey of that story is an amazing story that, everybody can relate to, and it changes lives, and it does everything. Gladiator 2 kind of fell short. There was no story, and they were asking the actor from the first movie, why did the second movie not do well? It had big actors, Denzel Washington and other things. He said they lost the moral compass. The idea that makes a story great is its moral compass. We were waiting for this guy to, no matter how hard he was beat against, how he kept this moral compass throughout the whole story. And that's what made him great and made the story amazing. Like, when's he going to break? When's he going to do something against that compass? Even when he falls apart, when's that going to break? When am I going to break? You know, life's beating me so much. I deserve it. I can't keep up with this life. Why does it keep beating me? You know what? It keeps beating everybody. Nobody gets out of that. Rich, poor, young, old, nobody gets away scot-free. We've done a little bit here. We're going to take a short break, pause for a commercial, and we'll see you on the other side with some more McGowan's Canvas Miracles. Welcome back to McGowan's Canvas Miracles. Well, we're working on a little watercolor today. I'm using some Chinese watercolor, something different than I usually do. Just a simple painting. We've kind of put a little yellow and red to make a sun. We might add a little more color to that, just to spruce it up a bit. Never hurts to add things in. One of the biggest things we realize is that we set these limitations on everything as human beings. For years, there was a runner who couldn't break, who ran a mile, 3 minutes. You can never break the under 3 minutes mark. So it was just not possibly done. Until it was done one time. Roger Bannister broke it. But you know what happened? The minute he broke the 3 minute mile, it became possible. So everything is impossible until it becomes possible. You know, we always think, oh, that's impossible. Nobody's ever done it. And then somebody does it. And then not only does it become possible, it gets beaten again and again and again. And within a year, dozens of runners broke that record. So when all those years, without being broken, nobody can do it, it can't be done, one guy did it, once they believed it could be done, a dozen runners broke the same record. Isn't that something? Most limits in our bodies they're not in our bodies and our abilities, they're in our expectations in our mind. Even painting. We believe we can't, so we can't. You know, belief is half the battle of anything you do. Once you start telling yourself, yeah, I can do this. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but I can eventually do this if I keep working at it. And that's the truth about anything. If you work at it, everything gets better. And sometimes it's even better than you think. You don't even, look at Vincent van Gogh. I always try to connect stories to painting. Here's a guy who all his life was doing something spectacular, creating a new form of art, line art, and something that, had never been seen before. But it wasn't his time. People were like, no, this isn't how painting should be. People just weren't ready for it. And he didn't live a perfect life. He had some struggles of his own. But if you go back, if you ever get a chance, people know the Starry Night and the swirly style of Vincent van Gogh. There's no mistaking it. But what I'd like you to do is take the time one time and just go on the internet and open up Vincent van Gogh letters and read the stuff he wrote. He was an amazing writer. He'll inspire you. Some of the words he says are just mind-blowing. And this is from a guy, if you watch all the shows, they say, oh, he was crazy and he cut his ear off, and go back and listen to his writing. Take a minute to say, how crazy was this guy? Depressed maybe, had a little something going on, wasn't working out for him, didn't quite win the battle. But even genius doesn't win the battle all the time. So that's your job, is to realize these forces are fighting against you all the time. And keep working to get ahead of it. Knowing it's there, as the state of wabi-sabi in Japanese culture says, we all have it. We all have the melancholy, the impermanence. How we deal with it is what separates one from another. Everybody knows somebody in your family is going to die at some point. But do we prepare for it? Do we become ready for it? Or we fall apart at the time? The stronger ones prepare for everything, mentally, financially, physically. They're always working to do better. You know, they're not just waiting for everything to work out for them. And one of the things you have to do too is you really have to go out and work in your community, getting to know the people around you. Last week or the week before, we had a beautiful lady on here, Judy Loge. And I've never seen anybody who spends as much time in her community, knows every single person's name. She can't walk into a store and not know your name. She knows everybody's name. She knows your children. She knows what's going on in your life. And she pays attention to every single thing happening in her day. It's an amazing, amazing feat. Like, I've always been kind of surprised when I meet people like that. There was another lady, a teacher, school teacher named Brenda Daigle, who used to amaze me as well. Every time I'd see her, she used to do these Santa Claus pictures and all these things, and she would know the kids' names, and she would say, "Hey, how's this one? And how's the dance class going?" And she would remember things about them, and she actually seemed to really care about each person in her community who was irrelevant to her life. But somehow, she made the fact that she did these pictures and talked with people and making them feel important, she made that part of her life, her day, her routine. And in that, she became loved and special. And that's why people love certain people, because they take the time to care about others around them. And when you do that, you know, life is short. Caring for yourself isn't that hard once you start to pay attention to it. As I've always said, get up on the end of your bed, ask yourself, what is it I want to do with my life, and am I doing it? If not, what one little thing can I do to start moving me down that path? Anything, whatever it might be. And when you do, your life will change. It can't help it. You know, when you sit waiting for things to change, nothing happens. When you start working on change, everything happens. The whole world changes. It can't help it. Whatever you do, the world has to follow. There's an old Bible quote that says, say to that mountain, move, and it'll move for you. That's so true. And you say, well, what does that mean? Well, the mountain can't do nothing. It just sits there. It's this bump on the hill. It's nothing. It's some dirt. You know, it can't climb you. It can't do anything to you. But I can climb that mountain. I can walk around that mountain. I can move towards that mountain. I can move away from that mountain. All the power in your life belongs to you. It doesn't belong to the mountains or the scenery or the things around you. You have the power every day to make a choice. Say, I'm going to do something different. What is your choice each day? And do you pay attention to it? Or are you just waiting? How many are just waiting? You know, watching the Netflix, hoping, oh, I wish my life was like that. I wish I did something special. Those people, they have such talent. They're so great. Baloney. There's nobody great. We're all great. You all shine. You know what I mean? If you're going to a job every day that you hate, start working on getting out of it. You only live this life once. Don't spend all your life in that job every day. I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow. I'm not saying be stupid. What I'm saying is start planning. Saying to yourself, okay, this job makes me miserable. What could I do that I would enjoy doing? I like working with children. Okay, I'm going to go back to school. Nights. I'm going to take a course online. There's all kinds of things. There's so many things you can do to change your life to what you want. You know the hardest part? Figuring out what you want. Have you ever asked yourself that? What do I want? If I could have anything tomorrow, what would it be? What would I give myself? And then details, you know, little things. So we start, say we wanted to put some flowers in here. We could draw perfect flowers, but what if we just put a spot here and there and some little lines down from it? Put a spot and some lines down. Just let something create itself. If I say, oh, this pattern works good, if I know to put dots and lines, it makes for a nice little planter. Then I know next time I want to put a planter in, I just put dots and lines. It becomes easier. What's the pattern in your life? Are you physically unfit? I was watching a doctor the other day, and she was talking about how even at 70 years old, you can be just as healthy as you are at 50. We that age, thinking ourselves getting old, is our body's deteriorating, but it's not true. A healthy person at 70 is just as healthy as a person at 50. They have the same kind of body, same strength, if they're taking care of themselves. Simple things. And she said, everybody thinks they have to get out and go to the gym and massively exercise and stuff. But they said just simply starting to bring your weight down will change how your hips hurt, how your joints hurt, how you feel, all that arthritis and all that suffering you go through. You start changing your diet a little bit, not even exercise, just lighten yourself up, take some of the weight off and the pressure and the things that we do. Because if we get older, we get a little bit lazy, we got to admit. We start to feel like, I deserve it. I've worked hard my whole life. And you deserve what? To suffer? You don't deserve to suffer. What you deserve to do is have a great life. Lose some weight, go to the gym, have a purpose. Change your diet. Learn to enjoy cooking. Get up in the morning and say, what am I going to cook? Am I going to cook something that's going to help me get a little lighter so that I can be a little more agile? I can enjoy my walks a little more on the bridge. I can go see a little more sunrises, sunsets. I can play with my grandchildren a little more. I can have a longer relationship. Whatever it might be. There's something that you want to do and you're not in shape to do it. We all let ourselves go a little bit, watching Netflix, eating those bags of chips. We're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of sort of trying to escape. What are we trying to escape? The hard work. That's what we're really talking about today. In order for something to be easy, people say, oh, Rob, you paint a picture so easy. I didn't paint pictures always so easy, and it's not always easy. It's a lot of work. I'm constantly painting, throwing out paintings, working on paintings, doing something different every day. I watch everybody around me. I discover new, easier ways to do things by accident, by students doing things that they didn't even know they were doing. And I think, oh, that's pretty interesting. And I adapt and I steal all the time. The masters have been around, doing paintings and doing all the hard work for years. They've written books about it. Go ahead, copy. That's the whole point. We learn best by copying, and then we adapt our own style from that copying. Find something that works for you. Again, so here, see, I'm going to take the edge of this painting and I'm going to start blending it together. Because everything, like in life, works better if we're not trying to stand out against the crowd. What we want to do is work together and become all part of one thing. Not everything works. I've had classes one time, you go in and you expect everything's going to go a certain way. But maybe that week, something's going on in your life and something's struggling and you're not quite getting the instructions out and you don't have the patience you should have had. But it affects everybody around you. I've had classes where, I didn't quite get the students to where I wanted to get them for that painting. I said, okay, I don't like this painting. I said, I'm going to give you all a free painting. We're going to do another one. Let them all do that. And I took the whole penalty myself and said, it's true. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't up to it. Wasn't up to par. So they ended up getting 2 paintings out of it. Now I could have just, they all said, oh, they're fine and they're all nice and whatever. But you want to raise yourself to the standard of excellence that you can do, the best that you can do at all times. It's not always going to be perfect, but the best that you can do. And when you do that, there's a love that comes out. There's something, people they believe you. You want your story to be believable, don't you? You don't want to be known as like, oh yeah, just that guy telling his tales again, his stories again. There's certain people, they sit down. I've gone to the top shelf. There's a guy called Catfish, this old native fella, and he would start talking to me about the culture and the city and different things that had happened over the years. And he had studied it all, and he was fascinating. I could not get enough of this guy. And the minute I sat down with him, I never wanted to leave. He was one of those guys that had done all his homework, all his work, and you just knew he was telling the truth. Whereas I've had other friends who, they start blabbing away and telling me stuff, and I think, oh my goodness, when can I get out of here? The sooner the better. Because it's all baloney, and you don't want to hear it. But you're polite and you're nice and you put up with it. But wouldn't you rather be one of those people that everybody thinks, wow, I really want to hear this guy's story. It's incredible. So tell your truth. Find your truth. And the only way you can do that is go out and miss some baskets. Go out and take some shots that you didn't make. Shoot that puck, whatever it might be. Go on that trip. fail. Try that business. Try 5 businesses. Try 10 businesses. Maybe one works, 9 don't. And be quiet sometimes. Biggest thing we do is we all want to talk. We all want to say, oh, look what I know, blah, blah, blah. The smart people aren't like that. You know what they're doing? They're listening. They're learning. They're getting some more advice, some more understanding of how they can make their life better. They're paying attention to what you're doing that's right. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to be better? Or are you trying to be noticed? I think sometimes we want to be noticed because we want to feel like, I am special. Somebody pay attention to me. We want to feel like there's something to us. Don't go looking for it in somebody else. You got to look for it in yourself. Go out and ask yourself, why am I special? What am I doing? Am I doing anything special? What are they doing special? Can I do that? Can I do something like that? Would I enjoy that? One thing about watercolor, it just sort of fills in and you don't know where it's going to go. You just sort of dot it in and let it sort of create its own texture. We can create the designs. So when you want to paint a line, use your finger, hold it off the canvas, you pull straight down. So easy. When you try to push the brush, you'll end up making mistakes and the paint will go everywhere and flow all over the place. Not so hard, see? Before you know it, we've been painting this, 20 minutes or something? All of a sudden we got something that's kind of fun, interesting to look at. Wasn't a whole lot of work. Not a whole lot of details, just a few lines here and there. So anybody can do this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short break. Then we're going to come back after the break, throw in a few more details, finish up the show, and add a few details to our life. See you in the after review. Welcome back to McGowan's Canvas Miracles. Well, we're working on a little boat today, something interesting. Some kind of a little dinghy, a simple painting. And details. We got to start working on, the details in our life. Sometimes I wake up and I think, what am I doing wrong or what am I doing right? I have paintings that I've started that have been sitting in my hallway for years. I put them there, I start on them, and at the time I have an intention. Something changes in my life and sends me down a different path, and the intention I had is no longer there. So it's hard to go back and get something. It's like having a relationship that you had before and you try to go back and grab that thing. It's no longer there. And sometimes you can fight through it. You can just pick up the painting and start working and get something out of it. And a lot of us do that, and some of us move on and try to find something new that we can figure out. Something that, can replace that. But nothing can ever replace something that was. Everything is new, everything is different. Even in relationships, we have to be willing to grow and find new ways to make it work with what we have now. Not what was or what is, but find something in it, to make it worthwhile and fulfilling. And that's our goal. If we're going to be in it, we have to at least try something. Say, okay, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing to help this thing out? And we can work on that. Just like a painting, little details, these barn boards in the door. They don't have to be perfect. Imperfect is always better. I've never liked perfect. In my class, I'm always telling them to smash things up. They'll be painting a picture, and they'll be sitting there for hours going, oh, so slow, trying to get this perfect line. I said, just grab the thing and throw a line up. Have it bend, have it crooked. You're wasting your time. No matter how perfect you try to make it, it's never going to be perfect. Just get something on there. You can adjust things, so the line's crooked. Okay, well that means that part of the door maybe has a hole in it. All of a sudden I created something new there. Whatever you get, work with what you get. You get an idea. Sometimes it seems crazy. One of my favorite things is, I love when people tell me they're going to do a business that I think will fail. I go out of my way to support them. Because a story that always gathers back to my mind is the fellow who came up with the pet rock idea. I don't remember when we were kids, this guy decided he was going to sell pet rocks in a box. Now, can you imagine? He went to the table and he said to his buddies, listen, I'm going to take this rock, I'm going to put it in a box, and I'm going to sell it to people all over the world. Can you imagine the support he got? They'd be like, yeah, John, you're going to sell rocks. You're going to, you dumb, you whatever, you know. He would have had laughter and smiling. But then he said, no, there's more. He says, I'm going to give people a list of tricks that the rock does. And they were laughing, and they're like, what kind of tricks? Well, you know, you push the rock, it rolls over, just like a dog. So your rock rolls over. You tell it to play dead, it just sits still. And he came up with this whole list of all the things this pet rock could do. And sure enough, he put these rocks in a box and sold millions of dollars of pet rocks. Now, nobody would ever think something as silly as that would sell or work. But then I thought to myself, he believed in it, he did it, and he made the impossible possible. You know, something that couldn't work, shouldn't work, because it was his dream and his idea, he made it work. What's your dream? What's your idea? What is that's impossible? Everybody would say to you, no, I'm not doing that. You're crazy, Rob. Nobody's going to want to go do that. People aren't going to take art courses every night of the week. You got to get a real job. You know what I mean? But what's your dream? Have you ever even thought about it? You know, is your dream getting up and making Tim Hortons coffee every day? Maybe. I don't know. But while you're there, learn skills. What are the skills you need to master in life? So say you're going to, whatever, say you want to teach guitar. You don't even know how to play guitar yet, but you want to teach guitar and you're working at Tim Hortons. Here's where you start. You realize when you go out to do something on your own, you're going to have to master talking to people. Every day you have an opportunity to build that mastery. You're talking to the people, your customers that come in, you know, and at nighttime you're going home and you're practicing the guitar, you're bringing up your chords, whatever it is it might be, and you're learning how to play this guitar or violin, and you're going to set up teaching later or singing in clubs or whatever it is that you want to do. But while you're getting the skills to do that, if you want to sing and be out and around public or doing these kinds of things, you have to have those skills. So if you're working at a coffee shop or whatever it might be, each day when you're talking to that person as they come through the line, do you look up a joke? Do you look up how to correspond with them? Can you make them smile? How are you building your skills for the future? So now when you're on your day, you're not only doing your job, you're there building your skills. Nobody knows what's going on except you. You're like, oh, I made that guy smile. I remembered his name. I remember. And in the future, as you get the stuff you're working on at night and the practice and you move into that, all your customers, you're coming in, you're saying, hey, you know what? I started a guitar course. You know anybody needs to learn guitar? You've built a customer base. You've built a smiles. You've built a way to talk to people. Every day you can be working on your dreams. No matter where you are, no matter what circumstances you're at. If you're in the bottom, the top, doesn't matter. But the dreams, you know, don't think of your dreams as once I learn to play guitar and can play, you know, that's it. Life will be great. That's not the way it works. What your dreams do is give you something to reach for. And in that reaching and becoming the best person you can be, your life changes. You alter your personality. Imagine that. You become something you never thought you could be. Special. Because you are special. I don't know how many times I have to tell you, but you're special. We're all special. We're all meant to shine as children do, as Marianne Williams would say. I think after the show you should go look up that poem. You'd love it. Maybe she should give me a commission for pumping out her poem. Oh my. But it changed, these kinds of things, even poetry. You know, I quit school. I was young. We grew up in a really poor family, had no money. I was a young guy. Hated being at home, just hated it. Hated being poor, hated poverty, hated all that stuff. And I left home when I was 13, never finished school. Spent a lot of time doing bad stuff, we'll say. Learning life the hard way. Doing things you shouldn't do, things that would make you ashamed of yourself. And I lived with guilt and shame and a lot of depression over the years because of those times and because of things I had done. And it took me a long time to understand what life is. Life isn't what you did. Life is where you're going, what you're doing now. Life is tomorrow. You can't change anything from yesterday. But many years from now, when I'm on my deathbed, and I say to myself, if I could change anything from this day to that day, what would it be? What would I have done different on that day that I didn't do? What was I afraid to do that now I'm saying I wish I had done? And go out and do it. Don't be afraid. There's nothing wrong with failing. Who cares? You don't get to take any of it with you anyway. You know that? You don't get to take your skills. You don't get to take your money. And at the end of your life, as you get older, the only thing you have is your memories. What memories are you building? I had this friend, Frankie. Well, actually, my friend's name was Denver, but his brother's name was Frankie. And Frankie was crazy. He would do the weirdest stuff. Denver would come to me and say, Rob, Frankie's off again. He flew to some country. He had no money, and he left and he went there. I said, what do you mean? He'd be off doing something. And he called us one time. We were sitting in a club, and me and Denver, and we were having a beer. And Frankie called, and I can't remember, it was Brazil or somewhere. And he said, I need some money. Denver said, I'm not sending you any money. You took off, that's your problem. He said, but I got arrested. I think he was stealing pop bottles out of the back of a truck in some foreign country, doing something ridiculous. Anyway, just to get through, to get some food that day or whatever. But that's the kind of guy he was. He would just go do it and figure out, take the consequences and do it. Now, he's probably suffered a lot. I don't know. I can't even remember if he went to jail or Denver bailed him out or what even happened after that. But the fact that he was doing these crazy things, when he got older, me and Denver could talk about all the crazy things Frankie did. But Frank got to talk about all the crazy things Frank did. He got to live the life, live the dreams, do the things he always wanted to do. He went out on the limb trying to find that edge, that something. How far can I push it? Where can I go to? And if we can find our thing that we want to push and we want to go to, what would it be? What is your dream? Ask yourself that. Nothing is too late. Doesn't matter if you're old, young. Colonel Sanders started his business at 65 years old. And we all know about KFC. I think he did pretty good for an old guy. Had a recipe, went around restaurant to restaurant trying to sell out this chicken fried recipe. I think it had been done 1,000,000 times, but somehow his was just a little better, or he believed it would be different than everybody else's. One of the great hockey players of all time, Wayne Gretzky. They asked him, his dad actually, Walter, they were saying to Walter, what makes Gretzky so good? He said he's small, he's not as big as everybody else, he's not the greatest skater. And he said as a young boy, he said he taught him something. He said, forget about the puck, forget about where you're shooting, forget about the game. Watch every opponent and what they do at all moments of all times. The guy skating up to you, how often does he shift to the right? Does he nod his head when he's about to try and deke you? Watch your opponent. Learn the game from their perspective, not yours. When you can anticipate what they're going to do, the other stuff becomes easy. And we all know he set records. Even great players like Bobby Orr said, how is it even possible that somebody could do what he did? It was because he came up with a different way to play the game. Just like art, you might not paint as steady or as true as somebody else. You might not do something in the same way, but there's something that you do that's unique, that if you do it well enough and learn to focus on it, it's going to be amazing. Everybody else is going to want to do it. I had a friend who, he couldn't paint people. No matter what he did, he was always trying to paint these perfect people, and they would always come out, a little blobby, the arms seemed a little short, a little off-centered, and he'd say, I don't get it, Rob, I can't, no matter what, I go to paint them, they always have this little blob to them. And then I said, well, that's okay. And I said, what about the rest of when you paint a cupboard, does it have a blob to it? He said, no. I said, well, why? He said, I don't know. I said, well, try to paint the cupboard with a blob. See if you can make the same mistake. Anyway, he painted the cupboards in his painting. They had a little bend to them, little chubby cupboards. And then he thought, that's kind of interesting. Then he painted the boots in the painting. They were a little chubby. So you had these chubby people, chubby tables, chubby boots. Everything in the painting became this whole chubby enterprise. And they all chubbed together and became, and it was the most interesting, beautiful thing I'd ever seen. So in trying to learn his mistake, he actually found the true thing that he was good at, something that set him apart from everybody else. It was his flaw, not something perfect he found. And nobody else could paint with the flaws that he painted. He learned to master his flaw. Sort of like the bowls in wabi-sabi. You know, there's a Chinese fella, he had a teacup. I've told this story 100 times, and I'll tell it again and again because it changed my life. And the teacup itself was a gift from his mother or his father, and he had it his whole life. And he would go out to his workshop where he made pottery. And you got to remember, so cultures for pottery in China and Japan and Korea are different. In China, you had to make perfect pottery. The glaze had to be absolutely perfect. In the old days, you would be killed if you brought pottery that wasn't perfect to the emperor. And in Japan, this fella, he's remember, they got this culture that comes through, but Japan's a little different, and they're studying different, and he's thinking differently. And he's sitting in his workshop one day trying to make this perfect pottery, because that had been passed down over the years. And he goes out to make his tea, and on the way out of the garden, he drops his teacup, and it shatters on the ground. Now, that teacup to him was precious. It was, he spent time with his mom or dad or whoever it was that had made that for him, and it was a great reminder of how special they were to him in his life. So he went back to the shop and he put the broken pieces beside him, and he was so upset. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. And he's saying sorry to his parents or his dad or whoever he had broken it from. And then he couldn't part with it. He said, I just can't part with it. So he started to put the teacup back together, and he glued the pieces and had all this ugly glue and chunks in the breaks. And he's like, oh, that's just awful. So then he thought, how can I make it better? So he started taking the teacup and he sanded down the glue around the edges. And then he got this gold paste that he was working on, this beautiful vase. It was all going to be done in gold. And he pasted the outline and the crack in the bowl, or the teacup. And he thought, wow, it's kind of beautiful. So then he had taken this teacup and taken it from a broken memory, a shattered thing, to a new work of art. And he started taking broken things from people around the neighborhood and replacing them together and making these beautiful, beautiful pieces of art. Kintsugi, they call it. Now, kintsugi art is famous in Japan. It's worth tons of money, and it's one of those things that you just can't get. You can't buy them. They can't be manufactured because each piece is unique. If you take something broken and you bring it back together and you make it beautiful and you work on that brokenness, that's something that can't be repeated. So they developed a whole, so we started out with trying to make a perfect jar that now they can manufacture the perfect glaze every time. It's the exact amount, the exact everything. And you can do it on a machine, but what you can't do with a machine is take something broken and make it better. In our lives, we're broken and we have to learn how to make it better. Take that brokenness and make it shine. What about us is different? It's also what about us is unique. Whatever struggles you went through in your life, not everybody went through the exact same struggles. So your story matters. Your story can change the lives of people around you if you put your mind to it and work on it. So don't be afraid of your struggles. Don't be afraid of what's wrong with you. Embrace it. How can I make that better? How can I use that to my advantage? Being poor, being hooked on something. Carl Jung, the great psychologist, once talked about, he actually talked about how when you were addicted to things, he thought maybe that was a calling from God. He said we have a deep desire in us, and we're always trying to fill that, that thing in our brain, that's something, trying to get past it. What is it we need to do? And in order to sort of ignore that calling and try to hide from it, we do crazy things. We're always trying to fill it with the liquor or fill it with the latest gambling or some some TV show we're addicted to, or whatever it might be. Something we're trying to quickly get that feeling and get that high, whereas if we were to look for our destiny and our greatness and find what it is and move towards that feeling that we feel for needing to get high or needing to find gambling or whatever it is that is driving you to find that fulfillment in your life that you're always trying to beat, find the next thing. If you looked for what's true about yourself, you would feel that so fast. It would be amazing. Your life would become an incredible journey. And that's all really life is a journey. We only get to do this once. An old man once said, I want to take the book of my life, write down everything as I go, and when I get old, I'm going to tear out all the pages I didn't like, and the only thing I'm going to read is the good pages as I get old. Wouldn't that be a nice way to do it? And that's what we want to do. Create as many good pages you can keep in there. A little bit of a fishing village on the side. Heck, see what it looks like. We got something we can put it in. Remember, the minute in your life we all start out thinking everything's impossible, but the minute you start doing something and getting a little closer, you start to realize it is possible, and your drive becomes stronger and better, But you have to get started. You have to do something. Nothing's coming to you. No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to make it better, and you can only make it better. And how you can do that is by putting some effort, going through the sacrifice it takes, whatever it is. If you want to get a little diet, here, we'll frame it up, show you a little pot boat with just a couple colors, a little black and white, something simple. And I want to thank you for tuning in today to McGowan's Cameras of Miracles and spending some time with us. And tune in each week. We got something special going on, and there's always something happening in life. And if you have a story, send it to me. I'd love to hear it and share it with the rest of the community. Thank you again for showing up.